Hello, everyone. This is Adrian Gonzalez. I'm president of Adelante SCM and host of Talk Logistics. And I'm here at the Manhattan Associates Momentum 2025 conference. It's been a busy 2 days of learning and networking about unification, about everything commerce, everything logistics. So certainly, lots to think about and write about in the coming days after this conference. But I'm excited to be here today to talk about breaking the silos in supply chain with Blake Coram from Manhattan Associates, Ian Westlake, and Adam Green from Coles Group. Now, this is a topic that I think, this whole concept of breaking the silos in supply chain. I've been an industry analyst now for 26 years, and that has been one of the key challenges companies have faced over the past, for many decades, if you will. But I think we're closer today than ever before to helping to finally break those silos, and that's what we're going to explore in our conversation today. To help our audience, maybe very briefly, we'll go around here and just introduce yourself and kind of your role in your company, and then we'll take it from there. So,
Blake. Blake Coram with Manhattan Associates. I'm a product leader here, so I have responsibilities over product governance for Manhattan Active Warehouse Management, and I also own our Unification factors. So working very closely with my partners in crime on the TMS side of things, labor side of things, and so forth, and how we can better improve the supply chain execution overall.
Great. And I attended your session this morning, very informative in terms of talking about kind of bringing together particularly the TM and the WM side of things and what you can do there from a unification standpoint. So, Ian.
Yeah, my name's Ian Westlake. I head up technology for supply chain logistics at Coles. That means my team's responsible for project delivery, operational support for all of the systems that operate Coles supply chain, DCs, transport systems, etc., etc. So a fairly big footprint. We're a large supermarket in Australia, so it's a fairly large team we've got doing all that work.
Great, lovely. Thank you.
So Adam Green, head of supply chain programs and transport. So my remit is we're looking after the WMN implementation, so we're expecting to do that in the next year and a half, but also been heavily involved in the TM procurement process, as well as some of the work that's been happening with the team over the last 18 months as well. So yeah, excited to be here today. Thank you.
Great. Well, you both have come from a long way to be here, so I appreciate you joining us and as part of the conference and as part of this session. Blake, let me start with you, and then we'll kind of get your perspective on this whole unification conversation. This has been a topic, like I said in my opening comments, that has been talked about for a long time. And actually, the term unification probably has been more in the spotlight over the past few years. And in fact, we did some research with our Indago supply chain research community. So these are supply chain logistics executives for manufacturing, retail, distribution companies. And, we asked them about, how unified are their, logistics processes, particularly their transportation, labor, warehousing, et cetera. And this was back in, I think, March of 2022 that we asked. And only 16%, again, only 16% said that these processes were either extremely unified / synchronized or very synchronized, unified. First of all, does that surprise you that, that unification is still relatively, a lot of companies still haven't gotten to that point? And maybe even before that, what does unification actually mean?
Yeah, let's take it maybe one step at a time just to make sure the audience is aware. Everyone in the room kind of knows this thing. It's been out for a long time. The concept of unification, the concept of unified supply chain execution, certainly something that Manhattan's been touting for several years now. But long ago in a land far away, this was the concept of supply chain convergence was the terminology that was typically used. And this is, give or take a decade, maybe even longer ago, where this concept was even brought up to say, these applications, they work in silos, they do their individual functions, and at some point in time, these things will quote unquote converge, and what will the benefits be then, and so forth. And, with Manhattan Active Technology, we've really seen the opportunity to not only unify them from a technology perspective, but also from a business value perspective. So that's where we're headed, that's where we're going, that's when we say unified, that's what we mean.
Now, a lot of times when I'm talking to folks about unification, they say, well, isn't that integration? Haven't we talked about, we want to better integrate our TMS with our WMS? What's the difference between unification and integration?
Integration's a 4-letter word for me. We don't talk integration anymore. It's unification for sure. And there's a market difference there, right? So even within Manhattan, our prior solutions were integrated, right? They were speaking the same language, using the same data models, had direct out-of-the-box communication with one another, but they were still siloed applications, right? Transportation did its transportation thing, warehouse did its execution thing, labor did its labor information, and they talked to one another, they shared information, but they didn't collaborate, right? And so when we talk about unification, what we've done with Manhattan Active Technology is to create a platform. We rebuilt the entire thing, every line of code, every piece and component into a cloud-native API-first architecture where any individual function has the capability to talk to any other individual function. And so when we talk about unified benefits, there's twofold. One is that all that integration goes away, right? So if your TMS and your WMOS are on different versions, or you upgrade one and not the other, and all that integration now has to be remapped and redone and so forth, like there is no integration between the solutions. But beyond that, it's not just IT benefits, it's business benefits. It's right. How can we leverage all the knowledge we have in the WMS and the YMS to make TMS better? How can we leverage all the information and knowledge we have from the WMS and the TMS to make the yard better, and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we actually explored this topic with our Indago members as part of that survey. And we asked them, what are some of the big hurdles to this? And I think one of the things that differentiates, I think, in my mind, the difference between unification and integration is optimization. Because you can integrate a TMS and a WMS, right? But you don't have that optimization layer where you're optimizing both of those things, and then you add in labor, let's say, and even yard into all of that, where you're optimizing them concurrently, holistically, in that kind of fashion. So I think when I think about integration is really about throwing data back and forth between the applications, but they're each doing their things in silos, as you just said. Whereas to me, unification adds that different layer, which is now the layer of optimization that really spans across these different, functions, which is a little bit of what you talked about, this morning. Can you just give like one example, maybe of something you talked about this morning,
Yeah,
to show that optimization?
Give two quick examples, right? One from a yard perspective and one from a transportation planning perspective. So from a yard perspective, when we're deciding what trailer to pull in, we're assigning a door. A good yard system, an integrated yard system, will be able to say, hey, this trailer is eligible for this door because I know what's on it, and that's the freezer dock and not the cooler dock and what have you, right? A unified yard system will actually say, I know every license plate that's on this trailer. I know the put-away strategy within the building, where it's going to go, and I will minimize travel from a put-away perspective by selecting this door over that door. It's not a good door. It is the exact optimal door to minimize travel within the facility, right? Something you cannot do with integration. On the flip side, from a transportation perspective, largely speaking, transportation systems are scheduling things to orders with a total liquid volume, total liquid weight, right? That is good, not great. Great, unified would be, I know how WM is going to allocate this freight. The orders aren't going to be filled in full. We're short on some things. I know we have full pallets here, cases there, units there. And I know how the warehouse is going to execute that work from a tasking perspective and cube and pick and pack those into license plates onto pallets. And I'm going to plan to that. I'm not planning to a pour liquid volume into the trailer. I'm planning to what the warehouse will actually execute into my transportation plan up front. So just two different examples where, again, it's the rich knowledge and the leverage of information about everything that WM knows, everything that TM knows, everything that Yard knows, and how can the other systems benefit from that in their execution lifecycle.
Great. I think that those are two great examples. All right. So Adam, Ian, let's get you guys into the conversation. And I don't know who wants to go first, but maybe just as a general reaction of what we've been talking about so far in terms of, why unification is getting more attention these days, maybe why breaking down the silos is important from a business perspective as well as an IT perspective.
Yeah, sure. And really resonating with like some of the comments around, the liquid cube and all that type of work. Like previously when we would have done this type of work, the integration leads to a lot of duplication as well, and you don't get those live updates. So we have a lot of those issues in Coles where we have a large number of systems performing a large number of jobs across it. They were all best in class when we bought them, essentially, and then they all get plugged in and they all have to stay that way. You can't upgrade them because you've now done that. So we have this problem inside our business where everything's been best, but now we need to look at a new way of doing this as an integrated flow and staying live and up to date with with all of the components as we go through. So whether it be loading, when we finish loading the trailer, then we notify the transport team. So all of that stuff just happens naturally rather than either waiting for a batch or waiting for like a event trigger that comes across. So we're looking at that from a Coles point of view. maybe.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, from a technology perspective, non-unified or siloed means different systems. And, we've got quite a lot of different systems. And from a technology point of view, we're looking to simplify and consolidate, because when you've got different systems, you've already talked about integration. Integration, can be problematic. It's not, as you mentioned, optimized either, but different systems mean different servers, different operating system versions, different databases, and there's a whole industry involved within technology that's required to continually upgrade, enhance, keep secure all of that technology landscape in a Manhattan Active world. Those things still exist, but that's Manhattan's problem now as a customer. We get the benefit of sort of seamless upgrades, continual service from an application point of view that we don't have to worry about anymore. So that's what unified to us means from a technology point of view.
Great. So, I mean, I think one of the things you just touched upon, I think one of the things that I mentioned where perhaps unification was much more difficult, let's say, even just like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, was kind of the advancements that have been made from just a pure computing standpoint, right? Just the movement to the cloud, the architectures you talked about, kind of moving to API-based kind of architectures. So I think that's really, been a key thing, because I see as a key driver of this is that you can integrate something together, right? And I think you were alluding to this a little bit. And you can say, okay, everything's running beautifully now. It's working. It's meeting our objectives. But guess what? Something like COVID hits, or something like the tariffs that we're all talking about today hits, or you're just growing your business, right? You're trying to scale your growth. You maybe making some acquisitions. You're expanding into new areas, so on and so forth. So as the business changes, you need to have that ability to much more quickly, to use the buzz terms, right? Respond, be more agile, adapt. I mean, is that one of the business drivers for you as well?
Yeah, definitely looking at how we're going to be responding to, like it said, to events and those types of things. Short notice, you don't have time to go through all the systems and set them all up, do the regression testing. So being able to, say, natively roll out either a new warehouse or looking at how we're going to onboard new customers into the transport, all of that being not having to go back and regression test against the integrations and seeing if it's going to work, and finding out afterwards that we need to fix something. So that being done up front as part of the ways of working, and that's just going to be the way we're going to work with the system. That's exactly one of the ways we're going to look to use that.
And you talk about the demands, the customer demands, supplier demands. It's like the pressure in the system is growing in terms of need to service and provide ongoing service. The beauty of a system like Manhattan Active, I talked about all those different servers and databases and different systems. When you do need to upgrade those or patch them, that means an outage, to the operation. And in this pressure world that we live in now, where we're 24/7 and we're at capacity, those outages actually hurt the business operation. We've got to find that window that's got the minimum impact in a world with Manhattan Active. Those upgrades are seamless. We're available 24/7, and that's an important thing.
The other thing I would note there is you talked about adaptability. It's like with those upgrades, we're talking about speed to innovation. Things like COVID happen, things like the tariffs happen, you have to pivot, you have to change your strategy. Where in the old world, right, you have an on-prem solution, you have a siloed solution, you're talking about there's a new release every year, but are you going to take that every year? Not likely. Mm-hmm. You're going to have some level of an upgrade path, and that's on, call it a 4 to 5 year cycle, potentially, if you're fast. Others are maybe not. Where when you're talking about a cloud native API first solution, not only do you have no downtime upgrades because we're simply replacing the microservices in the background and you just started this one and we started this one, you're done, but also we're delivering innovation much, much faster, right? So every 90 days, we're adding new products, new solutions to the product, new features to the solution that you can take advantage of. And if something happens like that, where even we need to pivot on what we're going to deliver because our customers need to, it's very, very quick for us to adapt and react as well to also then deliver those types of changes, right? So that then, again, every 90 days, you can start to adopt and accept new innovation.
Yeah, it's interesting, and not to move us too far off topic, but I think this is related to what you said. I mean, if any of you out there fly via Newark Airport, you're very familiar of all the outages that they've been having and issues. And one of the key root causes of what's happening with the FAA and the control tower systems is that they've got some systems that are 60 years old, still running on floppy disks, right? So I think that's an extreme example, or maybe not some extreme, what happens when, again, you've got all this technical debt within your organization, or you've basically running your supply chain in 2025 with technology that was built in 1995, right? You're not going to be able to respond that effectively. And unfortunately, a lot of companies, to your point, because of the cost, the disruption, and so forth, the WMS systems are 4, 5, 6 cycles behind the TM as well. Let's go back just to keep on time here. So you started using the TM, Manhattan Transportation Management. Now you're going to be moving to warehouse management. Can you talk a little bit about, for both maybe the TM and the WM, and maybe now as part of Unification? I mean, what were some of the main business drivers for that? What are some of your goals and expectations that you're looking to achieve, moving forward?
So I think one of the key drivers for even us going into the WM, so once we'd already purchased MATM, we were looking at how we're going to leverage the MAWM product. But one of the key benefits and one of the things we're looking at is how we can actually use those two systems together to look at the efficiencies we're going to get through our business. So whether it be looking at the way we're doing our staging and loading, or we're looking at the cube, or even just that way of like getting those extra couple of percentage improvements out of our business, that will come from having an integrated solution, which is something that you can only have with the way we're doing it. Previously, it would have been like with WM and TM being completely separate, there was not that opportunity to look at, the cost of being able to say, if I did a wave and then I've got pallets that are coming out very low, all of a sudden, and I put it onto the truck, and I haven't run a report now for the DC for the last couple of weeks, I wouldn't know the exact cost of what that pallet would be. Now with the integrated solution, I'm looking at, I know the exact OLPN ID, I know the actual picker and the loaders that actually did that work, then that cost me that money. So that's actually one of the ways we're looking to leverage it, just by end to end, actually being able to see KPIs and different trends across our business. That's going to drive a lot of improvements in the way we use the two systems together.
So when you were building the business case for this, I mean, did you build separate business cases for TM and WM, or did you go into it thinking, okay, we're going to kind of look at these more integrated or unified, let's say, right, KPIs or business objectives, and that kind of is what drove your evaluation and selection process ultimately?
There's definitely opportunity, we definitely built them separately, and so we've worked that process as two separate bespoke processes. But when you look at the advantages that you get when you go to an integrated solution, that's where things start to add up once you start doing your second evaluation and things start building. And I think that's probably where the key drivers for us when we started getting on board for the full unification of the solution, it was after the second round of business cases that we went through and all that work that we did.
What about from an IT perspective? I mean, what particular objectives you were looking for? I mean, you mentioned earlier on, system simplification in terms of, trying to reduce the number of systems. Any other factors that were involved in that?
Well, you mentioned before, legacy applications, our old on-prem WMS, is getting a bit long in the tooth. It did need it to be upgraded, and this pathway for us is sort of future-proofing, the need for those upgrades into the future. So there's a lot of drivers from that perspective that we needed to bring that up to a level, from a technology perspective, but also, we've sort of touched on it before, to meet the demands of the business as well. So it's quite rigid, the current system. We've got much more flexibility with the direction we're moving forward with. So that was a main underlying driver for that one.
Great. This is a topic that we could easily, spend, an hour or more, talking. But, unfortunately, we don't have an hour or more. But maybe as a way, I'm sure whenever I talk to companies about any of these topics, I mean, I think they get it conceptually, but their question is always, well, how do I get started? I mean, what's the first step? So maybe, Blake, I'll start with you, maybe as a way to wrap up. I mean, what words of advice or lessons learned based on the customers you've worked with, not only Kohl's, but others, how should companies be thinking about getting started with this process? Is there some lessons learned or key things to keep in mind as they start moving on this journey to unification?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would certainly advocate for is when you're going into that process, really evaluating what advantages that it can provide you. So right, wrong, or indifferent, a number of customers will come to us and say, we want to go live quick, we're going to go live like for like. And those are the worst words I want to hear from that customer, right? Because like for like, you're going to go get live, get stable, but then you're going to turn around and say, well, what did I deploy this unified application for if it's all still doing very siloed execution, right? So taking advantage of those early and often, and then the second piece, especially if you're in Manhattan Active Space, is the continuous innovation, right? So take advantage of what you have now, but be aware that that's going to continuously keep coming. And it's a big mindset shift for our customers, right? They went from these implementation teams where they do one big implementation, they roll that out, and then they kind of move on. Where now you have to really move to a continuous optimization model, right? So having a center of excellence as an organization that evaluates the initial design, certainly still go live, but then also continues to evaluate the release over release to see what else you can take advantage of and continue to hone that knife, because these are just things that we're delivering to you on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's certainly the change management, but I think that a mind shift is really truly required, because if you're really just, thinking of this as we're just modernizing our systems, by not really thinking about, hey, this is an opportunity to actually change the way we work and change the way we've always done things. You're basically leaving opportunity and benefits on the table.
Right.
Yeah,
Ian,
no, 100%. It's like it's not sort of set and forget. It's going to be a constantly evolving, door that we're going through and building capability. It's like at the moment it's WTM, WMS, and in the future, what else should we be considering as well? But those applications themselves will just naturally change as they evolve. We need to change with that as well. As consider, how do we bring more features into that product set as well? Dispatch is one that we're working through at the moment as well. Maybe in the future it's freight scheduling into our sites as well. So yeah, it doesn't stop. It'll keep on going. That's for sure.
Great. Well, Adam, you get the last word here.
Sure. So, I guess for us, we're still we're going through the journey of the unification. So we'll be there next year and a bit. But I think for people, if they're considering on how they start on the journey, I think the way I look at it is every part where we've either integrated or, between systems, whether it be swivel chair integration or actual system integration, everywhere where we have that type of operation, I've found that there's always a way to extract value and benefit from having those systems actually leveraging each other and actually by using the same. So that call it integration component, even though it's integrated, it's still technically a siloed data set, still siloed information. And by being able to run information across the whole processes and across the way that works, that'll be where you can find the opportunity to then look at how you can go to a unified model or a model where you're using both systems in the same, so both products are in the same component. So.
Great. Well, excellent words of advice for our audience here. So again, I want to thank you, Adam, Ian, and Blake for making the time. I know it's a busy schedule, and I want to wish you both safe journeys home. You've come a long way, but hopefully, you're taking a lot in from the great conference that we're having. And for those of you joining us, thank you for joining us. I'm sure if you've got any questions for the team from Coles or for Blake from Manhattan about what we've talked about here, you can always reach out to them via LinkedIn, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to share additional insights. So again, thank you for joining us.